Good morning, good morning. It's been a while since I played a custom game live, so I've just picked a 10-minute unrated against Midgame from France, and we have the Scandinavian modern, so e4, d5 takes, and then instead of the normal queen takes, I play knight to f6. And Midgame has played out the bishop to defend the pawn, but I'm taking it anyway. If he wants to trade bishop for queen for knight, that's great, because it also gives me an attack. I've played a metric shitload of blitz games during the night. Dogs woke me up at 3, and there's no getting back to sleep. So e5, compete for the centre. Very, very important. I'm really kind of reinforcing the importance of these basic principles at the moment, it seems. Okay, we'll put my bishop here and line it up with the king. Defended. And now that's attacked a second time, so knight takes, rook takes. Let's bring out the queen then. Bringing out the queen is something I would want to do anyway at some point. And I'm just, that pause there is for a sanity check, which doesn't always work. Okay. Okay, no, that's okay. He's taken my knight, which is fine by me. And now he's added a third attacker, so he's got 1, 2, 3 attackers all against his pawn. I have 1, 2 defenders. The obvious thing would be f6, adding a pawn to defend. You see, it's not just about counting attackers and defenders, it's also about, well, what is defending and what is attacking. So in this instance, his first capturer must be a piece, and then I can recapture with a pawn and then decline any further trades, right? So let's say he takes with the knight, I take with the pawn, he takes with the bishop, and I don't exchange anymore. He's just given up a piece, a minor piece, for 2 pawns. Okay, so let's put this bishop here and pin this knight. So now we have 2 pinned things on the board. I'm going to ask my opponent if he's been playing long. I'd like to go there and checkmate him, but I can't because A, it's defended by that, and B, the knight will take my queen. So I'll drop back here. Looks alright. So this was a good move by my opponent. Of course, remember this knight is pinned against the queen. It's not an absolute pin, so he can move the knight and give up the queen. So what I'm wanting to do now, obviously, is to complete development, I want to castle my king, and I probably want to go long. And because I have no d-pawn, getting my rook onto d8 makes a heap of sense. What's the situation with this pawn? Still 3 attackers, although that doesn't count, and 1, 2, 3 defenders. Alright, happy days. Could even put my bishop there and add a 4th defender. That's unusual. Okay, he just wants to get ready for that. Okay, fair enough. Knock yourself out. Alright, now the question is here or here? Here. It's defended by a pawn. It's still a good diagonal. You're attacking my queen again. The knight is no longer pinned, right? I think I'm alright. Knight's defending that. Defended, undefended. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, no. And the queen defends the knight. And okay, I was kind of expecting that move. But were you expecting this one? Not sure you calculated that far, my son. So from here, this pawn was defending that, and with this advance, suddenly isn't defending it at all, so he loses a pawn. And he may well lose another one, unless he wants to trade queens. If he takes the queen, I have two ways to recapture as well. He's been playing 2 or 3 years. I've said I've been playing 2 or 3 years as well, but I learned when I was a kid. Now he's having a jolly good think. Now if queen takes, I'm inclined to recapture with the bishop for a couple of reasons. One is, my bishop here, I'm attacking this pawn and the knight behind it, which is not the case with a rook. Another reason is that I keep my rooks connected. That means that anyone wants to come and try and bring it with my rooks. I'm expecting this. Well, that just drops another pawn, my son, doesn't it? And endangers your horse. My lovely horse. Okay, now, I'm up 2 pawns. And it's also important to identify, I think, which 2 pawns they are, you know. So actually clarify your advantage on the board. And my advantage is the C pawn and the E pawn, neither of which are completely passed because they can both be taken out by an adjacent pawn of my opponent's. My opponent has one crappy ass bishop. This knight isn't too clever either. I can't go here. So there is a case to argue for trading off. So that's an idea. And then I'm threatening to take the knight with the fork. And if I go here and he takes, my bishop goes there, the pawn's still pinned, his bishop's still bad. I've simplified the board. What's not to like? Let's do it. Just realised I made a typo in my French. Not very clever, my friend. If I get my knight here, let's say he doesn't trade, get my knight here, his rook can't go there, there. His rook can... Oh! Now, my first instinct is to play this, to cover these 2 squares, yeah? Means, well, he can't go there anyway, but if I push this, he can't go there either. And that makes his knight rotten. Oh, what about this? Attack the knight outright. If he comes here or whatever, it doesn't matter. I get to go in there with the fork, yeah? So let's attack the knight. Yeah, if you want some entertainment, just look at my profile and check out some of the Blitz games that I won within 20 moves during that. I must have played 20 odd games. I think I'm up to 1409 now in Blitz, which is really cool. I'd love to get to 1500 in Blitz. Yeah, it's not the way to become an awesome chess player. Hang on, now this just drops a piece, yeah? But I'm enjoying the challenge, you know? Okay, right, now you take this and I simply take your rook. So he's now down 2 pawns and a knight. And you ain't taking that. Unless you are a fool. I still have this now as well. And now it comes with a fork on them. And I can take the rook. So if I do this, where's he going to go? He's either going to go here, or here, or here. If he goes on the back rank, I take out the rook. And I don't have to worry about my bishop. But in fact, I may also have that. So now he's in check. Okay. Now I take out the rook and he takes me back with the knight. Yeah? Oh, hang on, my knight's on prise now. I take out rook. He recaptures. I come here and attack this rook, but then he takes my bish. I take out the rook. Knight recaptures, bishop here, attacks the knight, and if the rook moves, then yeah. Okay, right. Okay, so the situation is my rook is on prise. So is my knight. So I'm going to play my rook here and defend the knight. Chess is about one thing only, which is about finding the best moves. That's all you have to do. Find better moves. Now this guy's in a lost position. He's down a whole rook and 2 pawns. I do have double pawns here, but this one is actually quite evil because it's covering that square. Oh. Okay. Right, I'm going to simplify. Yeah, there wasn't much I could do here. I've actually got 3 pieces hanging. Okay, so. Right, he's still down an exchange and 2 pawns. So. Now we enter what is known as the end zone. I'm going to kick this rook. He can't go here or here. So now it becomes a case of lines and space and protection and all that kind of good stuff. So if he wants to keep the rook, he's only got one option now. Particularly because I could now go here or here and attack the rook. Okay. So now let's double up the rooks. I'd like to get one rook on my own 7th rank, 2nd rank. I'm happy that his king can't progress this way, which slows him down somewhat. Okay, and now, okay, this is not bad. I could go there. He can take this with check. So I'm going to go like that. He might take with check and I come here, kick the knight away. Oh! Well, isn't that interesting? The knight is now kind of stuck because it has to defend the rook. So if I hit the knight now, so this is an unstable position for white. Yeah, it seems as though he's just forced my king to retreat. But if a6 now, I'm attacking his knight, and if his knight moves, he loses his rook. So it's actually a bit uncomfortable. So what he should do now is retreat the rook, really. But then he is going to fall into this. Yeah, okay, so now I can hit the knight, and then he's in trouble. Right, he should have taken that turn to get the rook out of harm's way. So if I go here, got knight there, doesn't matter, gets taken all the same. Knight there, I'll take the rook, can't go there. Knight retreats here or here, I'll take the rook. So let's just do that as an example. I mean, grabbing the pawn would have been very straightforward as well. Come on, 1549 in Rapid. I am getting better. And one of the things is, I'm looking on every turn for attacking opportunities. Like Kasparov said, I've said this before, I used to attack because it was all I knew. Now I attack because it works. So now he's got a problem. Okay, let's take the knight. I'm now up a full rook, and it's just a case of really sweeping up after the job. That pawn is pinned, can't move. So rook here, and his rook cannot support his pawn, and that is going to force it. Okay. Should we take out this pawn? These guys should be able to handle a couple of these guys, right? Okay, and I'm just going to get my king out of harm's way. To here. Now he's got to attack these pawns because I can't actually defend very easily right now. So he does have some options. He's got a group of 3 pawns with a king in support and a rook in support. I feel that was a bit slow. Okay, now if he comes rook here, I have this, so that's all right. Now this guy's pinned, and I'm going to take him out because there's no way he can defend that pawn another time. So whatever happens now, I'm going to be able to take out this pawn. Okay, here now he can trade, but that would be foolish. Because now there's nothing to stop this guy. Because I'm actually one step ahead of White Harry. Black Barry for the win. And if he gets down to there, I can just do this. Right? So now I queen. He can queen. If he goes here or here, I get his queen. So in fact, he can only go there or there. But then I have rook check, and he has to go onto here, and now I get the queen. And my friend, c'est tout fini. You fought well, but in the end, it was all for naught. So interesting, good game, and I think some lessons in there. So let's do a quick review then. Just, you know, human to human. We don't have to involve the silicon fish god in this nonsense. Okay, so Scandi Modern, this is what I've been playing recently. And he comes out to defend the pawn, but it's not defending the pawn because it's already attacked twice. So what you have to say is, well, look, irrespective of the pawn, is this a good move anyway? And it's not bad, but generally knights before bishops. So I would argue maybe bring out one of the knights and then, because here, I just take. I'm saying, okay, do you want to trade off one of your bishops at the very start of the game? Be my guest. Also, dude, bringing out your bishop so early undefends one of these pawns. And you have to be careful about that stuff. Okay, so now he's pushed a pawn so that he can release this bishop. Now he brings out a knight. Okay, fair enough. And I bring out the opposing knight. It's very, very common because they are both looking at the same 2, in this case, dark squares in the center. The other knights would be looking at the 2 light squares in the center, right? Like this. Now he castles, which is not a bad thing, but again, in general, you want to get your minor pieces out, then castle, then your queen, then centralize your rooks. That's your kind of default pattern. Okay, I bring out a bishop, I'm preparing to castle. He adds attacker number 2 to this pawn. So I defend by getting my queen off the back rank, which is a step towards development. Okay, so now in fact all I have to do is develop my bishop and castle, and then I've completed development, and that would be in 9 moves. Right, he takes, I recapture. He brings his bishop here, adding a 3rd attacker to this pawn. I can't take because my pawn is in an absolute pin, so I defend again with f6. I still have options of castling either side, so I'm happy. Now he drops his bishop back, yeah, because the bishop still isn't under attack actually, because I still can't capture because the pawn is still pinned. So you might argue that was a fairly fruitless move. And at move 10, you've got to be making moves that, improve your position, right? And I don't think this was a necessary move. Okay, now I develop my final minor piece with a pin. Which, if you can pin, then it's better than not pinning, right? And my bishop's in a useful position. He develops a knight, hits my queen, queen simply retreats. Hits the bishop. Now this does, it has to be said, weaken the king side slightly, as we shall see. Bishop retreats, maintaining the pin. His bishop retreats for a second time in like 3 moves or 4 moves. Now I castle, and now I've got rook and a queen on the central d file, which is semi-open, so none of my own pawns is in the way. Drop the bishop back, hits the queen. Again, I am unimpressed. Now he hits the queen again with the pawn, but that was a miscalculation because he undefends his other pawn. And you have to say, look, what is the point of this queen attack? Yeah, on the plus side, he's advancing some pawns on the side that my king is on, which is the queen side in this case, because I've long castled. However, it's not like the queen is without options, right? Got a few squares I can go to here. So does it improve your situation? Well, in this case, patently not. And here I decide to recapture with the bishop. Always important before you decide on your candidate moves or decide on what move you're going to make, to say, okay, well, what are my options? And here, many of us would simply automatically recapture with the rook because it's the most obvious move. But if you take a moment more, you can see, okay, well, I could recapture with the bishop. Now, then you go, okay, these are the facts, right? And what are the benefits of recapturing with the bishop? Well, I'm attacking this pawn and the knight behind it. Okay, and my rooks remain connected. Happy days. Let's grab another pawn, just for good measure. Okay, now I've got 2 quite venomous twin bishops here. You hear people talk about the advantage of the bishop pair. Well, this is the advantage, right? Particularly in an endgame, that 2 bishops next to each other create an impenetrable, an impassable field, right? So they can work in a similar way to a rook or a queen can work, and actually partition the king and prevent the king from accessing part of the board. And they can also, do various checkmate combos. So now I decide to bring my knight in. I want to simplify, I want to get rid of that, I want to fork him. Okay, it's a 3-way fork. He declines. Now I attack the knight, because the knight is the only defender of the square that it just vacated. And here, he decides to throw up a rook. And I think this is just a blunder, actually. Because, yeah, he's attacking this now twice, but it's defended twice. And, it's defended 3 times, and the first recapturer is a pawn. So he'd just be going down the exchange. Right? If I ever open a chess-themed pub, I think I will call it the exchange. So people might say, oh, you're going down the exchange tonight, or you're going up the exchange tonight. Yeah. Another idea is the hanging bishop. I quite like that idea. Okay. Anyway, he drops his knight. And you can now see there is a bit of a weakness here. Look at my pawns around my king, right? The Secret Service guys are close to the president, right? This guy is wandering around in the marketplace, unattended. Okay, and now I come in with a fork, checks, and maybe then this was an error of judgment on my part, because I've got a piece here on prees. So maybe what I should have done is just simplified and taken out the bishop, right? But I do this and oh yeah. So, okay, so this is a check, but it actually comes with a discovery against my own piece. So here what I should have done is taken out that bishop, take out the bishop, and then he's got an option. He can, ooh. In fact, then he should still have taken my bishop because my knight would actually be trapped. My knight can't escape from there. So that was an error on my part. Come back, defend the knight. I'm still +7 though. Oh, and then I lose another bishop. So I trade off and simplify. So yeah, that flurry of exchanges did not work in my favour whatsoever. However, it was all academic in the end. He gets this pawn, but here, he doesn't calculate the situation. And this is a classic tactic, which is called removing the defender. My king is looking at the rook is defended by the knight. But if I can kick the knight away, then the rook is no longer defended. And he makes a mistake here, moves his king. He should have moved his rook. So now I attack the knight, he grabs a pawn because he knows he's going to lose material. I grab the knight, now I'm up a full rook, and down a pawn, up a full rook. And just sweeping up now. And I'm not scared about this. I mean, if this was covered, say, by a bishop, then rook a8 would have been mate, because my king can't go anywhere. But here, you know, first I have to evaluate the threat. Is it a threat? No, I can move here. If he wants to trade off. In fact, in this instance, what I have to do is I have to reconnect my rooks, one way or another, okay? So I reconnect my rooks, which comes with a couple of ideas. They're defending each other against this idea, but also they're ganging up on the f3 pawn, which is also now pinned. Okay, so he does this, I move, and he trades off, which is a bad idea because now he's left me with the only major piece on the board, and it's just a foot race now. But his king is really out of options because this pawn's guarding this square. So his king now only has a limited range. So start with a check. Check is the most forcing move. He can't go here. He can't go there. So he only has a few options. And two of them come with another check possibility. So there we go, there's the other check. And now he's forced back onto the third rank. In fact, he's only got one eagle square. And there might have been even checkmating ideas here. Like queen to here, maybe queen to there. In fact, queen to here would have driven him to there or there. And then here, I could have won the queen with my rook. And if here, so if queen here, king here, no, queen here, king here, I then have checkmate. So that might have been quicker. But I just simplify and grab his queen, and the game finishes anyway with him having 40 seconds on the clock. So there you go, that's a nice lesson for all you 1200s out there. Hope you picked up one or two things. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.